starting your week the right way. Come into the FPL Green Room with me, Gianni, and her, Holly Shands.
Coming up in today's show, we're going to react to all of the action from game week 7. I'm going to be relying on the numbers game once again because it's been another weekend without watching any football, but we'll be well covered because Gianni's got the eye test report for anyone that prefers that insight into the game.
Oh, Holly, I've watched. So there was only 4 televised games in England if you're not watching on a dodgy stick, of which I don't. And I watched the TNT game. Fine, there was some goals there for Liverpool Palace. But then on Saturday night, my Saturday night was spent watching a board draw 0-0. And then on Sunday, the first game, another board draw 0-0. So can I have my 200 minutes back, please? But I'll also update you on Spurs Brighton, where there was actually some goals. And of course, I've watched the highlights of Chelsea and a few others. So yeah, looking forward to updating you. And you may hear the smiles in our voice because, Holly, I'm in a good mood for once. I'm in the green room, and I guess you are too.
Yeah, back-to-back green arrows from the wild card now. So that feels great going into the international break. And I think I've got 3 free transfers now. It's the international break and I'm in the top 1 million. So nice. I can't really complain too much. I got 56 points. A Lewis assist was nice. And then in the attack, Chris Wood on Sunday with that 8-pointer. He's only like 10% owned. And then I had goals from Mbermo. Saka was the standout performance and the assist from Palmer as well.
I was so close to going Havertz captain and I went Haaland in the end. I guess you went Haaland too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess at some point I was looking at Saka as well. You would have heard me on this podcast. But yeah, it is what it is. Haaland, I'm still happy with my double Arsenal attack. Double Arsenal defence though, Holly, when we will talk more about that later. For those that went there, I mean, they've had 2 good home games and conceded in both. Not so good. We're going to talk about all that stuff later in the show as well as running through some fixtures and looking forward to how we are set during the international break with our transfers because we're both building up the transfers and we'll give you our early plans as well. But do guys, hit that like button if you're watching or listening on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. If you're on podcast platforms, then make sure you're rating us and following us. And if you want to message us, you can reach out at fplgreenroom@gmail.com. Holly, we always do biggest XG underperformer to start the game week. On Saturday, Adama Traore couldn't hit a barn door. He was so good other than his finishing. And I feel like we've been here before with Adama. That's kind of the story of his career.
Yeah, and I did see on X as well a little video clip of Pep trying to educate him on how to finish post-game, which I thought was quite sweet and very, very Pep. Fulham are looking decent though still. And, you know, we did say going into that game, like Captain Haaland, you've got to bear in mind that Fulham had only conceded 5 big chances up until that point. So, you know, do not overlook Fulham. And I think now we're going to come to some kind of fixtures and some more home games as well. But we saw Smith Rowe benched as well, didn't we?
Yeah, it was an interesting lineup because he went with like the industry of like an Iwobi and an Andreas, and he wanted Adama's threat on the break, so he just couldn't fit Smith Rowe, who you think is just a nailed asset. But for some of those away trips, I think he will be benched. And Raul Jimenez, the assist for the first goal was some back heel little lob. It was so good. But Fulham went to Forest the week before. Not many teams go to the City ground and win. Well, Fulham did. And then against Man City, so unlucky. So Fulham definitely one to watch out for. Villa go to Craven Cottage next. I don't think that's a given that Morgan Rogers and Ollie Watkins get FPL points in that one. So interesting one to monitor Fulham, as you say. But Adama, Holly, the headline in that game, before we move on to some numbers, Adama had a foot race with Kyle Walker. That is something I've always wanted to see this on a football pitch. And we often see players sprinting over 20, 30 yards, but we rarely see a sort of 60-yard foot race between 2 of the fastest players in the league. And boy, did we see it. Now, Kyle Walker had about a yard head start, and genuinely it was about 60, 70 yards. They started in their own half, the other side of the halfway line, and it took them all the way into the box. And Adama rinsed him. I couldn't believe it. Adama rinsed him, got the 1-on-1, and then, of course, hit it straight at Ederson. But it was really great to watch that. They have to be 2 of the fastest players in the league. I know Van der Ven is the fastest. He's got the Premier League record. But seeing Adama and Kyle Walker go at it head-to-head was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, they're 2 players, aren't they, that you just associate with their pace. And I bet that was something to behold for those of you that managed to watch some football over the weekend.
Yeah, we're going to talk a bit about your parenting hack of the week later in today's show, Holly. I'm going to get that from you. No doubt you've had a busy weekend with the kids. But yeah, what have we been up to last week? You were on the fantasy show on Friday, were you?
Yeah, so I zoomed in. So it was as in the studio, and I was on Zoom with Lee from FPL Family. And I think there was a lot of drama going on because Kelly Summers had been talked out the previous week of including Palmer in her wild card. She was going to wild card him in. He was in her draft and then she dropped him. And I was the only pundit or anyone on the show that had Palmer. So I was still gloating from that game week 6 score. But yeah, it was a fun show. And I think me and you are going to be on the sofa together at Stockley Park. And I think it's been like 2.5 years since that happened.
I mean, that's where we met. Like, that's crazy to think. I mean, only once this season, I think, has there been 2 pundits on the sofa together. So, and I think that was me and Az. So it'll be me and you, perhaps for the second time, which is pretty exciting. And we'll be doing the Premier League show. And then straight after that, the Sky show, literally the same morning, which is quite cool. And I guess you're in on Sky soon, are you? Or when are you next in on Sky?
Yeah, so I'm in on Sky game week 8 in the studio, and then it's game week 9 where we're doing the fantasy show together in person at PLP, and then zooming onto Sky.
See, I'm not with you in game week 8. You'll be off with some other bloke in game week 8, I expect.
Yeah, I mean, it's producer Mark, so I wouldn't complain too much.
Hopefully Mark's listening to this. Mark does also present the Sky Sports FPL pod, which is a new one, the fantasy pod. And they had Neil Robertson, the snooker player, on as a guest last week, which was a really good listen. They had Dean Ashton a couple of weeks before that. Holly and I sometimes guest on that. So if you want another pod, FPL related, I do recommend that Sky fantasy podcast. So come on then, Holly, hit us with some numbers, because whilst you haven't watched the games, what's so good about your FPL planning is you give me all the stuff I feel short on. So I do watch the games and I often slip on the data, and I know it's a 50-50 thing. You have to do both, ideally. You have to get eye test reports from someone if you're not watching the games, and then you have to get the stats from someone if you're not looking at the data. And my brain doesn't process spreadsheets and data well, so I much rather just listen to you give me the headlines.
Well, you're in for a treat. I think it probably will come as no surprise that Arsenal were top for shots again this weekend with 29. And given the fact that we had Trossard and Martinelli on the bench, that I'm a bit embarrassed about, because I spent all of last week talking up Trossard. It was even my differential for the fantasy show, and then he was benched. It was the Saka and Havertz show. So they both had 7 shots. Havertz had 2 big chances, but it was Saka's creativity as well. He had 11 crosses. He took 6 corners. He made 7 key passes, including 3 big chances created. So I think going into this game week, I was of the opinion that maybe you could save a little bit of money on Saka and maybe go with a Havertz or a Trossard, who are both nailed while Odegaard remains out long term.
Yeah.
Now I'm thinking, I wish I was like you and having double Arsenal attack with Saka and Havertz, particularly because I've had 2 weeks now where my double Arsenal defence has let me down.
Yes, that is frustrating, because those 2 home games look like bankers. When we look at Arsenal, though, do you think with your Arsenal assets, Holly, it's Bournemouth away, fine, goodish fixture, but then the next run of 3 are so tough. Like, do you see yourself holding 1 or 2 of them, but selling 1? Or what's your balance there? Because I think I'll definitely hold 1, probably Gabriel, because he's an easy bench. I might hold Saka, but Havertz will probably be sold.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that Arsenal are probably the best team in the league at the moment, and certainly the best defence in the league. And the numbers back that up. So I think I'll probably ride it out. I think I've got bigger issues in terms of my defence. Every time I go to set my team, I don't look at that double Arsenal defence and think, what am I doing? I think, yeah, that could easily be a clean sheet again this week.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I guess when I look at the defensive data, I know Arsenal over the season will be the best defence, but Liverpool are really impressive at the moment. And I'm like, more clean sheets. But the fixtures for Liverpool just are not good. And I know you don't have Trent in your team, do you? You didn't wildcard with Trent. So Trent's 8 would have been a bit annoying for you this weekend, I would have thought.
Yeah, it kind of passed me by, that Liverpool clean sheet. But yeah, seeing Robertson benched as well, it feels like it's Trent or nothing. I mean, there's Canate, isn't there?
It is at 5 million. I mean, that's twice now Tsimikas has come in for a big game. I think he played one of the Champions League games. So Robertson, you're right, isn't nailed at all now. But Trent, when Trent keeps a clean sheet, by nature of his underlying creative numbers, he will always get bonus points. And it looks like a goal's coming as well. It feels like that. But I mean, Arsenal were an interesting one just to stick on your numbers there, because they were, as you say, shot heavy. The attack's functioning well. I expect goals versus Bournemouth. Havertz has pulled out the international call-up for Germany, apparently injured. But just remember that Saka was injured for England last time, absolutely fine. I think Arteta's just doing this with his key men. So, Arsenal were good and created chances. It was an interesting setup. It was a bit of a box midfield with Havertz and Gabby Jesus at the top of the box, and Declan Rice and Jorginho below it. And then Saka and Sterling got the start. But Martinelli looked good when he came on for Sterling. We saw Thomas Partey at right back. It was an interesting setup from Arsenal, something a little bit different to what we're used to. But Saka just so bright. And Kai, they're both just two very red-hot players at the moment. I definitely want them both for Bournemouth.
Yeah, it's interesting. Another team that got a win, first win on the board actually, for West Ham. Important 3 points. I feel like I'm always talking about the team that Ipswich have last faced on these numbers games, which maybe sets a trend for the Ipswich defence more than the West Ham attack. 23 shots, and there's a few players that stood out. Obviously, Bowen, he had 5 shots, 3 on target. So great goal threat. Also creativity there as well. Made 5 key passes, including 2 big chances created, top for XA. We had Kudus with 5 shots, 4 on target, 3 big chances, top for XG. So he looks like he should be providing us with lots of goals very soon. And then we had Antonio, 4 shots, 3 big chances, and 2 big chances created as well. Now, Fulkrug, Lopetegui said that he could be back after the international break. It's been a shame not to see him integrated so far, but it'd be interesting to see how that shakes up this West Ham attack. But yeah, Bowen and Kudus, 2 interesting ones there, I'd say.
Yeah, Bowen was so good. Like, Bowen and Antonio shared an average position. Like, they were just both so high, and Antonio drifts right quite a lot. But Bowen really good. Such a tough one to really check West Ham out, knowing the small sample size of 90 minutes just against Ipswich. Because I look at their fixtures and go, yeah, they'll have some winnable games, but can I trust the West Ham attack? They were playing a newly promoted team at home. Of course they won. Like, you expected it. But Bowen and Kudus both look very, very good. Yeah, it's fair. I mean, the team, I guess, that caught my eye the most this weekend, though, Holly, were Chelsea. And I know you've got a few numbers there from some of their star men. I mean, yes, Chelsea drew 1-1. But in terms of my FPL scouting, I don't have a Chelsea attacker. And they have scored more goals than anyone else in the league this season. I think that's still true.
Yeah, it is. Palmer, again, 7 shots. Creative again though as well. He took 5 corners, made 6 key passes. And then Madueke, he was the standout with 7 shots.
It's really good. Palmer 7 shots again. Game week 6 saw Palmer get 7 shots and 4 goals. And this time was 7 shots and no goals. But the skill to do what he did in the box that I mentioned earlier was so good. Like, he just flicked it round a defender and then got a shot away, and it forced a double save out of Matt Sells. It was like Dennis Bergkamp of the 90s. Palmer's someone I want on my team. Like, you have Palmer. Do you look at the next few fixtures and think, like, he's just a long-term hold for you? Because I look at it and go, it's a bad entry point to buy Cole Palmer ahead of Liverpool away, like one of the toughest fixtures on paper. But I feel like this Chelsea team are going to score against everyone. So Liverpool away, Newcastle at home, Man United away, Arsenal at home. It is a tough run of 4 games, but Palmer's good enough to score in all those tough fixtures, isn't he?
Yeah, you look at his output from last season, you have to bear that in mind. Like, I'm so pleased that I've got him in my team. I'm just going to have a quick look through now to see how he performed in these fixtures. Last season, he blanked against Liverpool away, against Newcastle at home. He didn't play in that one because I think that was when he was kind of moving
first
clubs.
Couple of games, maybe, and then it says Man United as well. Like,
he scored against United away.
Yeah, he's a boyhood Man United fan, and then it's really? Arsenal at home.
Yeah, and he scored in that fixture as well.
There we go.
So yeah,
I like that. I like that narrative. We can always, just a narrative to suit our agendas here on FPL Green Room. Chelsea exciting. I know that it didn't come with a win and a huge amount of goals, but I just feel like Palmer is if you can reach him, you just move there. But look, there were other teams that really did, of course, catch the eye. Like Liverpool, just efficient. Jota, I gutted I sold him a wild card. He does feel like the obvious number 9 for Arne Slot and a better pick than Diaz, and many of us moved there. Brentford scored 5 goals. Flecken owners will be annoyed. Because Wolves scored 3 off an XG of like 0.7, but Mbermo still looks good. He only got the 1 goal. It was a penalty, and he took it just like Ivan Toney takes his penalties. And then we saw the West Ham 4 goals, which was big, and the Man City 3. It is worth noting, Man City didn't look like the Man City that we're used to, and I think this is a big one for the eye test. Is this just simply down to Rodri? I don't think it is, Holly, because they didn't have Rodri at the start of the season because he was back late from the Euros and they were winning games and Haaland was scoring goals. I think it's more than just Rodri. And Rodri's obviously the keyest of cogs, if that's a term. But De Bruyne injured, they're lacking something in terms of creativity. And Foden's not the Foden of last season yet, and he played number 10. But I think De Bruyne is a massive miss for Haaland. Obviously, of course he is. And he could be back after the international break, right?
Yeah, De Bruyne is the crucial one here. And the latest report we've got is that he could be back for game week 8, but who knows? It's good to see that he's not in the Belgium squad, not for this international break or the next one either.
That's great.
Whether he's stepping back from international duties, let's wait and see on that. But yeah, I think it would be great to have him back for Haaland. But then again, like we mentioned, I'm not that surprised because Fulham's defence have proved difficult to break down this season.
Yeah, like Joachim Andersen signing has been amazing. Like left Crystal Palace for Fulham, and Fulham have got an upgrade after losing Tosin Adarabioyo to Chelsea. I do look at Man City and just go, the fixtures are now there. I want Triple City. Like they've got Wolves away, great fixture, good fixture. And then they've got Southampton at home, and then Bournemouth away, then Brighton away. It's a good run of 4 games. But who's the third City player we buy? If you're on, say, a Rico Lewis and a Haaland, and many are, do you go to another City defender? Are they going to start keeping clean sheets? Do you just buy Gvardiol? Or can we wait and maybe get a De Bruyne? But it feels risky. I mean, Doku really caught the eye with his cameo, but you just can never predict Doku starts. He did really well in the Champions League on Tuesday night, one of City's most dangerous players, and then Pep drops him. And he comes on and he scores the winner, effectively. But he's just a non-event. The City-wide main, you just never know with Pep. Will he go for the control of Bernardo and Grealish, or the direct nature of a Savio and Doku, or one of each? And there's 4 there for 2 spots. And then if De Bruyne's back fit, do we see Foden out on a wing? Well, maybe we do. But I do want Triple City with those fixtures. Like they're going to play Southampton at home, Holly, and we're just going to have Haaland in terms of City attack. That doesn't feel enough, does it?
No, it doesn't. Well, it's that case, isn't it? I think De Bruyne fit is the one. Potentially Foden, when he's got back up to speed, could be the one. But how do you get him in? Because Palmer is going nowhere in my squad. Saka is going nowhere in my squad. And if you've got Haaland, Palmer and Saka, there's not necessarily that space. Probably not for many managers. So then it becomes really difficult, doesn't it? I think Lewis has proven that he's worth the punt now, which is one good position to be in. So I think you kind of have to hope that 2 is enough at the moment. I think there's too many consistent scorers from other teams to really get bogged down in trying to triple up on City, even though they've got the fixtures.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I mean, I feel like the other 2 teams that have caught my eye this weekend that we need to discuss are, well, they're 2 teams that played in Super Sunday. And fortunately, Sky Sports did have 1 game with goals. And it was Spurs Brighton, and it was, I know it's a proper cliche, but it's such a game of 2 halves. Like Spurs were so good first half, Brighton was so bad, and then they reversed it. Don't know what happened at half time, but Brighton was so good second half, and Spurs were terrible. And I look at both teams, and I want investment there. Like Spurs attack. What's your plans with Spurs attack, Holly? Because they got good fixtures, and Solanke, Maddison, Kulusevski, Brennan Johnson, who everyone built up and scored again. But Son's going to be back by game week 8 as well, you'd think. Yeah,
so I bought Jackson on wildcard in game week 6, and I always had a plan that I'd move to Solanke for game week 8, and Solanke's actually outscored Jackson now in the meantime. But I mean, no regrets there. So yeah, Solanke in for Jackson's likely to be the move. That spot could be Watkins, but it would stretch my squad elsewhere, and I don't feel like it's right for the team, because I know we're talking about Spurs now, but a very leggy performance from Aston Villa and those Champions League midweeks already look like they're taking their toll on a side that had, was it 3 players that didn't start because of injuries picked up in the Champions League, and they already had McGinn on the injury table as well. So yeah, I think that Jackson to Solanke move is making more and more sense. I mean, I'm obviously not going to make any moves for the next 10 days because literally anything could happen over the international break. And, I think I've got a bit of funds tied up in Jackson anyway. So yeah, I think Solanke's the route, because it's just difficult to know in midfield. Like, they are sharing the points around, aren't they, between those midfielders? And obviously when Son comes back in, that does change the dynamic as well. I feel like if I was to buy a midfielder, it would be Maddison. I think I've just, he's a player that I like, whereas Johnson's a bit of an unknown.
Yeah, and Johnson gets the early subs. Maddison is also coming off before the end a lot this season, but it's kind of late in games. Like Kulusevski's now playing in the middle of the park, and he seems to be getting 90. Like in the last 5 weeks, he's had 90 in every single one. Bearing in mind, him and Maddison are playing the same sort of number 8 position. And in all of those games where Kulu's had 90, Maddison's come off 84, 76, 87, 79, 81. But it's not coming off at 60. It's coming off at 80, which I think is fine. He also got bonus points. He got the 3 bonus points against Brighton. So again, if he gets an attacking return, even an assist in a game, because a bit like Trent and De Bruyne, because his underlying creative, like his key passes and all that stuff in the BPS is good for him, he often then comes away with bonus points. And I do like the fact that Spurs have got 3 fixtures now at home in the next 4. Homes against West Ham, Villa and Ipswich. And then Fulham after that. They got some good home fixtures. I like Mads as well. I prefer Mads, I think, to Brennan Johnson. Son is still on my mind.
Yeah,
and then Solanke.
Son's a proper pick for you, isn't he?
Yeah, I had Son game week 1, 2 and 3. Spurs today, what they really lacked on Sunday was that cutting edge. And I think Son provides them with that. But he was off his game early in the season when I owned him. I got lucky on game week 2 when Pickford had a howler and I think he got a brace. But he was a bit out of sorts. So Spurs definitely one to consider. But in the same fixture, Holly, Brighton, that second half, like when we're shopping for Brighton assets, if we want to cover that attack, you've got to spend like 5-6 million. It's tiny money for the attack you get. And many will say, their fixtures aren't good. But this is a team that have just scored 2 against Chelsea, 3 against Spurs. They scored against Arsenal earlier this season. They scored against Man United, like they beat United. They're going to score goals against everyone. And Matoma was on another planet on Sunday. He was so good. It was like peak Matoma from it was actually the year before last, I think, when he came to the Premier League. And everyone was like, I just need to get him on my team ASAP. He was playing like that again. One to monitor because he has a long trip for the internationals. He obviously plays for Japan and it's a long flight and stuff. In game week 8, Brighton do play on the Saturday. They're not a Sunday game, so it could be a slight concern with Matoma. But Jorginho Ruttner played really well. Remember, he's playing instead of João Pedro, who's going to be out for a while. Ruttner scored and got bonus points, and he's like 5.5 million mid. He's not a forward. He's playing number 10. And then obviously Danny Welbeck doing Danny Welbeck things. So I like the Brighton attack. Like if I am going to use a transfer on a budget player, I think it would be for Brighton. I'm just not sure if I want to spend transfers on budgets. This season probably is going to be about building up your transfers to then move around premiums, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, like the fact that we know that João Pedro is now out for a while, like I'm not expecting him to see him back till December. We've seen Welbeck play 90, 80, 90 in his last 3 games, a couple of goals in there. Yeah, and like you say, Ruttner as well at 5.5 million mid. He looks like an exciting pick. He is one that does get subbed early, but he's doing well. Do we know who's on pens?
I think, I don't actually know the answer. João Pedro was, of course,
Welbeck,
the penalty taker, but without João Pedro, I think it will be Welbeck. I think we have seen Welbeck take pens at Brighton. I'm just not sure who else was on the pitch at the time. But I would assume it would be Welbeck.
Solly March is
Estupiñán
back though, isn't he? Or on his way back. Like he could easily start or get significant minutes after the break.
He played 25 minutes for the under-21s on Saturday, Solly March, or half an hour. So he is on his journey back. You're right. He's been out for over a year, so I guess we won't see him game week 8, but maybe 9 or 10 we might see some minutes. And then, I know Estupiñán's taken them for Ecuador. I don't think he's ever taken them for Brighton, though. But I'm putting Brighton players on my watch list. I must admit, even Welbeck, they're firmly on. My watch list at the moment is Brighton players, Spurs players, Man City because the fixtures are so good, and Palmer. It's pretty much that, I think. I think that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I think mine is Solanke, and that's about it at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's so vague at the start of certainly an international break because so much can happen. Holly, I guess we should move on. We've got trial of the week. We've got some Friday or late week decisions to make, like end of the international game week, where our initial thoughts for transfers and captaincy are. And then we'll get to our parenting hack of the week as well. But let's start off with our throw of the week, and we have a little sting for this that our producer Mark has been preparing. It's it's time for throw of the week. That was definitely just done live by me. My throw of the week, Holly, it's the guy that everyone captained, and it's the team of Man City for somehow not clocking more XG than their opponents. It is Erling Haaland, throw of the week, and Man City for somehow losing out to Fulham in the XG stakes. How can Man City this doesn't happen? Oh, and the week before they lost out to Newcastle in the XG stakes. Something's just not right. Are you a big fan of XG, Holly?
I mean, I think it's got its purpose, hasn't it? As a maths geek, obviously, I know its limitations, but in terms of just having that high level view of what's going on, it is good to know. It's like the whole Haaland captain thing is annoying because I think if it was first international break, then you would have probably felt comfortable giving it to Saka or Palmer because Haaland's ownership was so much lower. But obviously, when he's 75% owned pretty much and most of those are giving him the armband, it's scary to go against it. And, Saka was my vice captain, but I don't think I ever really had any conviction in thinking that I would genuinely go elsewhere.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think Haaland felt so obvious. Like, how often do we see Man City playing a middling team at home and you just go, they're going to bully them? Something is a little bit off, and Pep will be working hard in the international break to resolve that, I guess. But yeah, I mean, any other trolls for you, Holly? Like in your personal team, I mean, Arsenal defence has been a bit of a troll in itself, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think that's probably the other standout in there, the Arsenal defence. But I still think they'll come good. I don't look at my team and worry with that double Arsenal defence because kind of the calibre of the players. So I'm not concerned.
Yeah, long term, we just know they'll finish the season with the most clean sheets, the best expected goals conceded, and the fewest goals conceded in general. Holly, at this point in 2 weeks' time, we'll be looking back at game week 8. Will we be talking about Haaland captain again for us? Like big decisions we've got to make next ahead of the deadline will be captaincy and transfers. Where are you at with both those things?
Well, Haaland plays Wolves.
I know.
I do feel like, I'm going to look this up live now as we're recording. I do feel like Wolves are a bit of a bogey team for
City.
For City. Maybe not in the last few seasons. They lost 2-1 away at Wolves last season, but the other 3 results in which Haaland's played have been 3-0, 3-0 and 5-1. So Haaland has 8 goals in 4 league games against them.
Right.
So it's obviously not a disaster, but if you look further back in terms of records, particularly away from home, City they had a 1-1 draw back in 18-19, and then in 19-20 they lost home and away against Wolves. So there is a little bit of boginess about the fixture, but I think the solidness of the last few seasons, it's going to be Haaland captain for me. In terms of transfers, well, literally anything could happen over the international break. A lot of my players will be going out on international duty. Rico Lewis is one that you never know who he'll start after the international break.
Yeah.
Is Walker in the England squad?
Oh, I don't know. I doubt it. Don't think he was in the last one. I mean, Rico Lewis didn't play well against Adama Traore and co. In fact, Adama was rinsing him, and Walker had to come on at half time and then got rinsed himself. But he did get the assist.
In the England squad.
They're both in the England squad. Interesting. Yeah. I think because of the midfield absence, Lewis will be playing. But yeah, I mean, let's see. I did one of my eat my hat tweets this weekend that Palmer would definitely. I was so confident that he'd start, and he did. Like he's just needed for his on the ball midfield presence at the minute, I think. But defensively, can be a little bit suspect at right back. I don't think he's naturally a right back, like not an old school right back anyway. He's obviously so good on the ball. So yeah, I guess we won't get Man City team leaks though, will we? Because they play on Sunday.
Yeah. So I think obviously it's Spurs are the early kickoff. So I think as things stands, Jackson to Solanke is likely to be the move that I make this week, and hopefully. Yeah. I can roll the other 2 free transfers, but I could find myself with like 3 or 4 players flagged by the time we get there. So yeah, there's lots to lock in, and obviously I'm on Sky that day as well, so just complicates it for making late news and getting team leaks as well. What about you? How are you set up? How many frees have you got?
Yeah, same as you. I think I've got 3 free transfers now. Yeah, I have. I've got 3, and I got 0.5 in the bank. I own Trent. And I want Trent I see Trent as a long-term hold, but if I'm going to build up these transfers all the time, and I can move away my premiums, I could sell him and bring him back. Selling Trent to, say, a 4.5 million defender allows me to upgrade a Luis Diaz to a Cole Palmer. And I think nice. It does feel nice. And I want Luis Diaz gone. And sure, I could sell Luis Diaz and buy a Maddison in a straight swap, or a Spurs midfielder, who I like. I like that option too. And the entry point for Palmer isn't good. I could just wait on Palmer for a few weeks. But at the same time, I'm like, I just see Cole Palmer as someone that could score against Liverpool and then Newcastle and then Man United and then Arsenal, because he's that good. And for anyone that's watched the Nottingham Forest highlights, you'll look at it and go, Palmer could have had another 25-pointer, because he's just got that in his locker against any opposition, I think. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do. That's one option. It would mean selling Trent, though, and I don't really want to do that. But when I look at the rest of my watch list, like Spurs, I don't have any Spurs attackers, so I could just go Havertz to Solanke. I wouldn't do that. Well, I don't want to sell Havertz when they've got Bournemouth. Like, I really want to sell Havertz the week after, because he goes Liverpool, Newcastle, Chelsea. I certainly don't want double Arsenal attack for those 3 fixtures. That's when I'll convert Saka and Havertz to probably, I don't know, Son and Solanke, or maybe even Palmer comes in then for Saka. That's an option too. But I also know I really want to target Man City. And if De Bruyne is back fit, does he come in and start football matches straight away? Or does he need a little bit of slow introduction back? He last played in game week 4. De Bruyne has had a 90, an 89, an 87 and a 90, but then he's missed the last 3 league games and a few cup games. And I'm like, after a month out, can De Bruyne come in and start a football match, or are we going to see 30 and then a 45 and then a 90, or a 60 and a 90? So I'm hesitant.
Learned his lesson, hasn't he, from game week 1 of last season, where he chucked him in against Burnley away and then he re-injured himself. So I think he has to be careful with De Bruyne, and he knows that now.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Holly. You're right. And that has been well documented at City, that the De Bruyne has had issues with, I think, being chucked in, and he knows late in his career the injuries are coming and they need to protect him. So maybe a little bit too risky, but maybe for Southampton game week 9, I could go De Bruyne. So my routes are, do I bring in a Spurs player or a Chelsea player, or do I'm in love with Brighton attack. Do I just punt on a Brighton attacker and sell a Semenyo to a Jorginho Rutner, for example? Maybe. Yeah,
because Bournemouth's fixtures are awful, aren't they?
Yeah, and I've got Semenyo. He's currently on the bench, but do I need him long term? I don't think so. Arsenal, Villa, City up next for Semenyo. And you could go Jorginho Rutner for 5.5 million.
You've got a strong 8, haven't you?
I have.
And how are you feeling about that?
Yeah, all right. I quite want the first sub. I think this week was a prime example where I had a benching headache, but Luis Diaz was left out, and then I didn't have a benching headache. I had a Rodgers come in, who didn't get any points, but it was nice that without Luis Diaz, I could have, a good player come in. Although maybe you just downgrade and make some money. I could sell Semenyo to Dibbling. Dibbling gives me that money out my 11 and it on a cheap bench player, but I could start Dibbling, because if you're ever going to start him, it's against Leicester at home. And he again looked really good against Arsenal, Dibbling.
I've got Dibbling.
Are you starting him?
Well, No, I don't think so.
You might end up starting him, but you don't plan to start him.
No, like I look through my team and I think like I've got Saka, Palmer, Rodgers. I mean, I could play him ahead of Rodgers, I guess. Fulham away.
I would play him ahead of Rodgers.
I'm going to put him in now just to like try it on for size.
Yeah.
Do you think, is Jackson a hold or a sell? Like, you're a Chelsea fan. What's your opinion? You'd sell him. My other issue is that I've got Konza, who got subbed off after 11 minutes with an issue.
Didn't look comfortable. He straight away knew he had to come off. I think it was a hamstring. Can't remember what he pointed to. There was centre-backs dropping like flies in that fixture. The two United centre-backs were injured. Maguire went off early. Konza didn't look comfy.
Yeah, I have got Greaves on my bench at the moment, who I could play ahead of Colwill, because Colwill for Liverpool away doesn't feel like a starter either, does it?
No, I definitely drop go Greaves in. It is worth noting, Greaves had a big chance, and Ipswich from set pieces looked dangerous. And Greaves, I didn't realise how big. Now I've bought Greaves, massive. I'm watching him closely. But yeah, set pieces, he looks like he's going to be a real threat. He'll get a goal this season.
Yeah, so hopefully Everton at home is a sort of fixture that'll pop up in.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think Greaves is a good hold. And certainly I'd put him above Colwill for that one, for sure. Holly, let's move on to your parenting hack of the week, because our weekends are both pretty much spent with our kids. I've done 2 birthday parties this weekend.
Oh, wow.
Saturday and Sunday birthday parties, which I'm really enjoying, but it's very new for me, the birthday party thing, because I'm only sort of second and third birthdays. You've been doing it for a few years.
Yeah, but, when the invite comes home now in the school bag, I'm like, oh, great. Like, when it's the Saturday morning, I'm like celebrating. I'm like, yes, we can't do this on.
Yeah, okay. Go on then. Oh, but before you give me a hack, when you're hosting parties, what's the best time to host? Because this morning's one was like a 10:30 to 12:30, but yesterday's was like a 1:30 to 3:30. And I often think, are they thinking about having to provide food? Is it around nap time? Like for Gaia's, I think we did like 12 till 2 and did lunch, but yeah.
Yeah, morning. I mean, my kids are really impatient. So like once it's a party, like they literally get up at 6:30 and they're like, oh, we've got so-and-so's party today. Yeah. And they're choosing what dress they're going to wear, making an awful attempt at putting makeup on. And then you get to the party and they're like 20 minutes in, oh, I'm hungry. Where's the party food? Blah, blah, blah. So yeah, 10 till 12 is great because you've not got to like keep them hanging on all day. And then like they're eating at 11. So then lunch is already sorted. And if it is their birthday, then you can go home and open all the presents. So that works well. I mean, now my kids are a bit older. Occasionally, like you can book out the soft plays like exclusively on an evening. So sometimes like we get like a 6 till 8 p.m. party now. This is like from 5+. Bobby calls it a middle of the night party. And like in winter, like when it's dark, it's like, oh, I get him staying up late and, you know, everyone else is going to be in bed, and like Rob's pretended to be in bed once when we got home from an 8:00 party just to humour her. But then she's like, why are all these cars driving? It's the middle of the night. Mega cute. But yeah, the earlier the party, the better in my eyes. Parenting moment of the week. Well, I mean, this sounds a bit extra, but I've got my kind of office space in our garage, but our garage has an upstairs. So we've got a double garage with an upstairs, although it has got quite like a vaulted roof. So it's like I'm in like a quarter of it for my studio space, but it was getting really, really messy. So Sunday morning, it was like, right, we've got to deal with the garage today. Rob needs to do some work in here actually, because it's like open to the stairs. And like we lose so much heat, and I know that this is my first winter in here. I'm like, we need to make
you're going to get cold,
as warm as possible. I need to buy myself an electric blanket. It does have storage heaters, but we got the Halloween box out, which they were buzzing about. So all the Halloween stuff, like Halloween's becoming a bit of a thing, and I've been a bit on the fence about it. But I always buy like the Halloween outfits for the next year in the sale.
Oh, great shout.
Like 1st of November, you got to get yourself to the supermarket.
Oh my God.
All the reduced Halloween stuff.
You can take the girl from Grimsby. You can't take Grimsby from the girl.
I love a bargain. So they were trying on all the new outfits, and then we moved the Halloween box into the house. And while I was having a shower, they'd set out the living room with the Halloween tablecloth and little Halloween plates, and it set up a party. And they would just put the Halloween outfits on, and they'd like shut themselves in the living room. And I had to knock on the door, and it's like, oh, it's the Halloween party. And also really cute at bedtime, I did buy them some Halloween pajamas, which were reduced in the sale, and they've put those on tonight. But it's like they need to get the use out of the Halloween pajamas because they're only going to wear them for 3 weeks. Now I did buy them in sizes that were too big, so they should fit them next year as well. So these £4 pajamas, I'm going to get 2 lots of 3 weeks out of them in the next 2 years.
That is a proper good hack. I like that. I'm going to remember that November the 1st date as well for Halloween for next year.
Yeah.
Great shout. Great shout. So when you can do that for Halloween, even Christmas jumpers, you can do that for in January.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the Christmas stuff does get reduced pre-Christmas.
Yeah,
Halloween,
you're right.
It like gets staggered, whereas the Halloween stuff, it's literally the 1st of November, it goes from full price to 70% off.
I hope you're not buying Easter eggs after Easter for the next year because they'll be out of date, won't they?
Out of date. The clothing is fine.
Yeah, it's a great shout. I'm so doing that. And supermarket clothes for kids are great because the value is good, the quality is fine, and it's just an easy place to shop. I'm getting loads of Georgia Vazda clothes. It's great for Gaia.
And did I see that your wife has been buying clothes for you? Did I see that on Instagram?
It's the first time ever, and I know that's quite normal for like couples of our age. I'm sure you sometimes buy Rob clothes, but for me,
he would hate it though. I mean,
yeah.
Like sometimes at Christmas, like I'll buy him something, but I'll like stay very safe. But if it was suggested, if I was like, oh, I could buy you some clothes, he'd be like, absolutely not.
Yeah, mine was the fact that it wasn't discussed. Like if she had said, like, oh, I'm going to get you a couple of T-shirts because you always complain you've not got a beige T-shirt for when you do Sky or whatever. That is a genuine complaint of mine. I'd have been like, fine. It was just, it caught me off guard. It was like, oh, by the way, I got you some stuff from Next the other day. It should be here tomorrow. I was like, you what? Like, thank you. It's really sweet. But I was like, Next, like that's the sign of middle age. Like I like Next. For Gaia's clothes, we get Gaia some beautiful stuff from Next. It's quite expensive, but it's nice. And my mum's always shopped at Next, and my sister and Cam too. And if you work in an office, it's good. But for me, I dress like a teenager still, Holly, as you know. Like I'm trying to keep my youth. And so I was just like, oh, okay. So what's more like middle age? The fact that my new clothes are now from Next, or the fact that my wife is doing my clothes shopping? Like God. So
yeah, but how old are you?
I mean, I'm 36. So,
I mean, that's getting to middle age. Like I mean, I'm okay, but normally there's like a 25 to 34 box. And then when you get to 35, like you're in like the next box. So I would say 36 probably is middle-aged. And I can say that confidently because I'm only 34.
Yeah, you're the right side of the box. I was doing a sleeper video the other day. You know, we do our like selfie videos for sleeper, and I was recording mine and I watched it back. I was like, oh my God, you can see all my grey hairs in my beard, which I never noticed I even had, and was like, do I re-record? Because I was out in the sun, just caught it at the right angle. I was like, do I re-record that? I was like, no, got to embrace the greys. But I am now consciously keeping a bit of a closer shave on the old beard. So yeah, got to watch that one. But I did off the back of the Next delivery. I went to H&M and I went and spent like 50 quid just buying some T-shirts from H&M because I was just to feel young again. Yeah. So yeah, I still haven't tried on the Next stuff. I don't know if I'll keep it or not. I'll let you know in the next pod. Guys, that's been awesome. I've loved chatting. I hope you're enjoying the show. If you do want to show your support for the Green Room, then like there's so many ways you can do that. Tell your friends. You can post about us on social. Obviously, hitting buttons like and subscribe and follow. That's all useful too. Drop a comment. All that. The ratings for podcasts really help us in the algorithm. So, guys, thank you as always for your support. Make sure you keep hitting those buttons for us.
Yeah, and I think we had a record week of watchers on YouTube last week. So if you are watching/listening on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. Like it'd be great to get to like 500 subscribers. This is our Game Week 8 episode, so it'll be 2 weeks until you hear from us again, but catch us there in the Green Room again on a Monday morning.
Great, thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you very soon. Enjoy the international break.